Good afternoon, folks. Mike Naso here from IPR365.com and podweather.com with the latest on Tropical Storm Debby. And again, even though it is only late June, we continue to monitor Debby as it spins there in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. You can definitely see it has a circulation, a very large, ill-defined circulation, but there are a lot of systems that don't have any circulation at all, and certainly this one, heavy rainfall and some storm surge flooding will be the main threat. You can see there right towards the end of that loop there is some convection firing, and that is more heavy rain for areas of the North Florida Panhandle region, and we will discuss all of that and where Debby may head and how strong it may get on this update. Here's the latest as of 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Debby was at 29.0 north, 85.2 west. Winds were 45 miles per hour. Keep in mind it had been up towards 60 about 24 to 30 hours ago. And the forecast with this system has been incredibly difficult. Debby has been a very, very difficult system to track. Some of the computer models took it towards Florida, some towards Louisiana, some towards Texas. And of course, for a while it looked like Debby would become a hurricane and move towards Texas, and then a hurricane and move towards Louisiana. Now it's clear it will not become a hurricane, and it's moving into Florida. You can see the track as of 11 is still a little bit to the south and east of Debby's current motion off to the northeast at 4. So again, anywhere within this circle area over 5 days, Debby will likely be around, and a circulation this large won't necessarily strengthen a lot, but it's going to hang around, and the system does not have to be strong to drop heavy rain. 995 millibars, a decent minimal to moderate tropical storm, and we'll continue to see that motion towards landfall. But again, landfall could occur tonight or it could occur Thursday, depending on if Debby stalls again or if it ends up moving a little quicker towards the coastline. We really just can't be sure of it. We do have the tropical storm warning, obviously, all the way to Englewood and Destin on the Florida Panhandle, and again areas of, say, Appalachia Bay and regions right in this little area here are where those storm surges could reach 5, maybe 6 feet, and we've already seen flooding, tornadoes. This has been a mess for Florida, and obviously tornadoes are a threat throughout the day today even, and we will continue to see those tornado watches throughout most of the state as Debby moves on in. Now, as far as the system goes with wind, it's not as strong as it was. It's likely to only go down in intensity from here, but you can still have gusts to 60 miles an hour, and that can do damage. That can still do damage. So we're probably looking at an area here of about 200 miles where tropical storm force winds are occurring, and that's all going to move into the Florida coastline and cause problems, no doubt. Be ready. The potential for power outages are certainly a thing we're going to have to deal with this system. Now here's the model guidance, and you can see the GFS model really performed far and away the best with this. Very steady in its prediction of this region of Florida here being impacted the most by Debby. And again, the European model, other models were trying to take Debby westward towards Texas. Let me tell you, had that occurred and the system been in a much better environment and much warmer waters, Debby could have been a very potent hurricane heading towards the Texas coast. So again, this is while Florida doesn't need the flooding and the rainfall in excessive amounts, we could have been looking at a 80-90 mile an hour hurricane moving towards Texas, at least. Who knows how strong some of these things could get over those warm waters of the Gulf. You can see the GFS ensemble members are clearly keeping Debby around the United States coastline for several days. Look at, they're all clustered here, but a gradual movement towards being back in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, whether or not it makes a second landfall on the East Coast, whether or not it's fully tropical, if it strengthens, if it became a hurricane as it moved out to sea. Look at Hurricane Chris last week. We just can't be sure. This is a very, very difficult system to try and predict. I could tell you that much right now. Let's take a look at Debby here on the satellite imagery, and you can clearly see the system has been struggling. It is not a well-defined system of any kind, and we do have that one recent convective burst here, and this is associated with heavy rainfall over the Big Bend area of Florida here. And whenever you get these heavy bursts, keep in mind that onshore flow could create some water piling up into Appalachia Bay, and that's why we have those storm surge potential up to 5-6 feet or so. There's the visible satellite. I put it into fast motion so you could see as the sun went down yesterday and where it is today. It didn't move yesterday, it hasn't moved much today, it didn't move last night. The system's just stuck right here, and look at how all the way from the Bay of Campeche down here all the way back up to the Bahamas, North Carolina, you have this system. But note over here, very dry air moving towards the system. That's why it kind of has a very skeletony type appearance here on satellite, and that is usually associated with systems dealing with a lot of dry air. Look at on the infrared. If I told you there was a tropical storm there at the end, would you believe me? A very, very ill-defined tropical storm, a lot of dry air. But note the storm, note the center of circulation there in the visible. We saw it in the infrared. Can you see it? Can you see it? It is right here. As broad and ill-defined as you can get, but still a circulation center, still a tropical storm. You can see the radar out of Florida the last couple of hours, clearly heavy rain, and that's really where that convective blowup is we just saw on the satellite imagery. It's right in this region here, and that's where the heaviest rain appears to be occurring. But even as far south as Fort Myers, you're getting hammered with heavy rain. South Carolina, North Carolina, it's a rainy day along the beaches there. If you're heading out, definitely bring an umbrella, or don't go out at all. Here's the latest radar again from the state of Florida. You can clearly see the rotation right in this region here, but not a whole lot else. That's the big thing with this system. We're getting a lot of rotation and rain where it's bursting on satellite here and there, but overall very dry offshore. So the worst weather is on the right side of Debby, and we are not going to have to deal with anything overly significant with this system. Thankfully, it could have been a lot worse. Here's why. Look at the upper level pattern. This is a very, very favorable pattern right over the top of the Gulf of Mexico. You can see an anticyclone, high pressure aloft. If the system was sitting under this over those warm waters, it would be becoming a hurricane. But instead, the center of the system is right here. So you actually have shear from the north side of that anticyclone. So just because there's an anticyclone in the area doesn't always mean it's favorable for the system. Remember in 2004, Hurricane Francis got undercut and weakened dramatically from a high-end Category 4 to a ragged Category 2. Still caused problems though, no doubt. Now there's the shear tendencies, and you can obviously see where the blues are. That is much more favorable wind shear for development, and you can tell where the system on the east side there, those winds, very, very high shear tendency off to the east. So this system will not become a hurricane unless something absolutely dramatic happens, but with it sitting over the same water upwelling, we're not likely to see much in the way of intensification. Nonetheless, Debby is drenching Florida, and even though we are not even towards July yet, we are waiting on Ernesto. So whether or not this is just a fluke and we happen to have an early burst of activity for the early hurricane season and not much else happens, or whether this is a precursor to something massive later on in the hurricane season, we'll be here at IPR to let you know about it. I'm Mike Naso from Internet Partnership Radio. I'll see you next time.